dream. Like, I only know that I'm a cleanish person.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, gonna clean that thing that you messed up.
Yeah, and there you go. And now you know you could not live in a slobbish household. And I've seen plenty where you just ask the question. I've done that with a bunch of friends. Like, hey, how do you go with dishes? What's your vibe like with that? And some people say, oh, I'll live till the next morning. And I say, you can rot in hell.
Welcome back to the Sharehouse, place to air gripes and find compromise.
Wow.
My name is Joel Harris, and I'm joined by Mikey D and special guest back again, Shannon McShortle. How you doing?
I hate that.
How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent.
Okay.
That was good. How was that? Do you like the energy there?
That's great. So as the mediator, I need to quell that energy when I need to or encourage it. And today the two gripeys will be griping, and I'm here to try steer the conversation towards a compromise. I'm wondering if we have gripes here today. Shannon.
I found my water bottle. I got a gripe. Where's my baba?
Oh no!
Is that the baba there?
Oh no, I found it. It's so good. It's so good. While you drink up, Shannon, I heard you had a gripe. Please air it.
My gripe is with picking people to live with. That's
because you're still with your parents at this current time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just there was a situation where I was going to try and live in a share situation, and I just couldn't pick the qualities in a person that I would want to live with. And I had a friend who got mad at me because I was like, I would never want to live with you. And he's brought it up. It's been years. He's brought it up for years since.
Yeah, right.
So your gripe with, say, Michael is like, how have you found the perfect housemate?
Yeah, it's more of a question. Yeah, I get it. I totally get that. And it's such a tough mission to go down. I went down the track of living by myself first. And then when that came to its end, I realized very quickly, for me, not speaking for other people, I realized I didn't want to live by myself anymore. I was getting desperately lonely. And so I was looking through my friend list, and you realize very quickly there's not a lot of people you do want to live with.
Because it'd be awful.
Yeah.
For more than every one of my friends, for more than like 3 days, I'm like, yeah, cool guys, let's wrap this shit up.
Yeah. I stayed very clear of close friends, and that played to my favor very quickly. To dive into this little story here, I ended up moving out with my now great friend Lockie and don't need to give first and last names, but I did.
Hey, I do. Just join the train,
Dox
bro.
him with
Full
dox.
names all time.
So I moved out with my friend Lockie that I worked at a bike shop with, and so we had outings that we'd been on together. Joel had come on a couple, but we weren't hanging out weekly. We weren't hanging out even monthly at times. We'd hang out every so often, say g'day, and we'd always be in each other's DMs. But it was never anything that was full best mates, knew everything about each other, which ended up being the best thing for me because I got to forge a friendship and learn about this guy, which some would say potentially risky.
Yeah.
But with Lockie and I, ended up being the greatest thing ever because I didn't have any preconceived ideas of what it was going to be like to live with him. And I didn't already have the notion that I either did or didn't want to live with him. So there's no expectation, really. And I think the expectation is the killer. Because if you think, oh, I'm really going to get along with this person, that can be a problem. Because then you go and they might let you down. Right?
Yeah, if you set that high a bar, yeah.
But then again, like, compare that to, like, partners. I feel like that's someone who you're, like, already hanging out with heaps and you're, like, super close to them.
Yeah.
And the goal, I guess, is to live with them eventually, you know?
100%.
So what I'm wondering with you, Shannon, is like, how often have you gone on this like look or search for people to live with, and what are like flags you've come across that are like, maybe I won't live with that person because of this?
One of my really close friends, who I was like we're very close, but I think I could live with him, just because I feel like he wouldn't be high maintenance. He's wildly irritating.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But he wouldn't be high maintenance in like a house situation because he wouldn't do shit. I hope you see this, Sahil.
Wildly irritating is a word that I would cry if Joel would describe me as.
But you'd love to live with him, is what you're
I'd
saying.
love to live with him. He's so much fun to be around. But
Right.
when we were talking about moving out, and then as we were going to move out, he was like, "Oh yeah, man, we'll live together for like a month." And I'm like, why?
What?
So at that point, your lives are just not aligned.
No.
And then he was like, yeah, because I want to buy a property. like a month after. I'm like, then don't move out.
Why don't you just move into the house that he bought? There's your compromise.
I don't understand. And also, it's been years since we said that. Guess who still lives with his fucking mum?
Both of you.
Sahil's getting absolutely rinsed at the moment. Sahil, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. I think you're great, and I'm sure that you'll eventually buy a house one day. I think the idea of choosing friends is difficult because you've got your things you think you want out of a share housemate, and ultimately you don't know. You've got no clue. You've lived with family all these years, and it's such a different way of living than what it is living with a complete stranger. Because even if I were to live with Joel, I live out of Joel's pocket most of the time. And yet I still don't know what it'd be like because there's so many little idiosyncrasies that you wouldn't even be aware of.
Yeah, it's such an enclosed personal space, which is like, it shocks me that you're like, yeah, I'd move out with best mate Sahil. It's like, I think we touched on a couple of these points in the harmonious living episode, that it's dangerous to live with someone you want to stay friends with. Like, not saying you're not going to be friends by the end of it, but you know, those idiosyncrasies might just turn into this.
You had to run in with that with an old man gave you advice, about, he said, don't live with your best friends. Was that?
Well, yeah, don't live with someone who you want to stay friends with because, you know, the friendship could flourish, and in my case it has, which is great, but in some cases it might not, and you might, you know, you might not end up being friends by the end of your share house term together, which is unfortunate.
I think goals for a household as well, because like you are in a content household kind of, you know, but imagine there was someone in this house who just didn't
an accountant
at all, and there was like, oh my god, they've got the fucking lights out, they've got the cameras out again, why are there cords everywhere?
That's a great segue into things that you can tick off that are pretty tangible. And we talked about that again in the harmonious living episode of you can start to make a little short list of the things that you do want in a household. And some people might want a party household. I've got friends that live in Brunswick that love the fact that they can go out with their roommates or housemates every weekend and get home at 5 a.m. and they're right to have kick-ons at the house, and they've got people that are cranking music and doing all kinds of frivolities till the wee hours of the morning. That's my worst nightmare. But I know for some people that's exactly what they want. But put that on the goddamn list. You can now be very comfortable to go, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And that's a way to start funneling in the life that you want to live. What do I also dislike about living at home?
Yeah.
And what do I like?
And then sort of figuring out, I guess, what you can bring to the household based on your relationship with your family. Because I feel like that's where you're really tested to your extreme. Like, I only know that I'm a cleanish person.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, gonna clean that thing that you messed up.
Yeah. And there you go. And now you know you could not live in a slobbish household. And I've seen plenty where you just ask the question. I've done that with a bunch of friends. Like, hey, how do you go with dishes? What's your vibe like with that? And some people say, oh, I'll leave it till the next morning. And I say, you can rot in hell. You stinky bastard, that's not going to happen.
I thought it was going to be like a week and then like, I'd be mildly disappointed. The next morning, and that's it, straight down.
Nah, dude. You cook your meal, you eat your meal, you clean your dishes, we're done here. And look, I let that slip all the time. But ultimately, it's nice to find what aligns with people. Shot out of a cannon right now, what's your favorite thing about living at home with your family?
No paying rent. I pay a little rent. No paying a heap of rent.
Okay, so maybe you want somewhere cheap.
But like it is the family connection, because I feel like, as I think you were saying about being like feeling lonely when you were. Yeah. I feel like if I'm not around my family a heap, I think that's just it's like a very like cultural thing as well, where it's like you kind of want to be around your family a fair amount.
I totally felt that, and that was a big thing for me when I moved back down this side of town, was that I was 13 minutes away from my family household.
That's like the benefit of, that's why, if anything, I would move like a suburb over. I'm not going to say where I live though.
No, please don't. But I think that's also another important thing to put on.
Move on, keep going.
No, I think it's a really important thing to put on your list though, that I didn't factor in when I first moved out, how far that distance would be in real time. It was an hour to get to my house, an hour to get to Joel, who I hang out with weekly. It was an hour when I eventually started dating my girlfriend. It was an hour and 40. Wow. And so you realize that a lot of your life might center around one side of town even, and that's something to put on the list.
And like I didn't notice that. Because I got to see you guys a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this area
Yeah.
is very much like my kind of area. Like I'd be cool like living here. But then I'm like, oh, there's like family friends that I've known since I was like 4 that live just next to me, and I see them all the time, and I forget about it because it's so like part of your life.
Yeah. And that's such an important thing that you kind of have to take a step back. And again, it's a values thing. And some people want to get as far away from their family as possible and not see them. And that's so fair enough.
Yeah.
But I'm very close to my family as well. And my cousins lived on the other side of town from where I was. Like it was an east to west type, like deep east, deep west type deal. And it was almost a 2-hour commute. And that was really hard. And so, now being where I'm at is another learning that I want to be where I'm at. And for now at least, I really like that. And you can drill that kind of mindset into everything.
Yeah.
Joel's a hyper eccentric and hyper creative person, and I know I'm speaking for you at this age. Feel free to
ahead,
take over whenever.
take it.
Joel hosts dinner parties a lot of the time, right? And does movie watchings. And if he was in a household where people just wouldn't have a bar of that,
exactly.
that would be misery for a year straight that you locked into that contract.
Yeah.
So that's things you really need to consider. What is important to you?
I think it says a lot about like your movie gatherings as well. Is you'll host it and I'll get there and I'll forget who hosted it because everyone there is there for it, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's like when I get there, Aaron Chaffel, just there, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like my event a lot of the time, and it's great because it is like a communal thing. Like everyone wants this to happen. I'm just the dude who initiated it.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to draw to a compromise or some takeaways, it's like just knowing you need to be aware of like your compatibilities and what your non-negotiables when trying to move out. Sahil doesn't sound like a man. I feel like that friendship would be ending.
Bad that I'm just
You should
named
feel bad. You just dumped on Sahil for how long? Yeah, only 12 minutes. Wow, that's felt like a lifetime of dumping on Sahil.
It's not enough.
And moving it. I feel is there a pool with you where maybe you live between like the friendship hotspot and the family hotspot, or like it's very much like going to be a suburb over from the fam and a bit of a drive for us?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, ideally a medium, but I think it's fam. I think that's. I like how do you feel like fam?
Fam is really important.
But would you say fam more than friends, or
blood is thicker than water at the end of the day?
Yeah, but then custard's probably thicker than blood, so...
And we make custard all the time.
I heard about, not to get weirdly serious about it, but I heard this on the drive over here, genuinely, like as I was driving by. The original quote is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So it's like about, it's about the bonds as opposed to families. So like if your family's kind of shit, then like technically your new family is like, so it's like, so that's the blood is thicker than water sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, because water is just sort of like, just a place of birth.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea that you can discard family if you really need to. I mean, I used to work in youth work a lot, and there was a lot of kids that would have their family be their mates at school, and they really meant that because their home life was so hard. And not to get dirty deep and serious here, but that I like that a lot of people find that with a share house living as well. Like you can really find a family type unit. It just depends on what you're looking for. And
sorry, Nemi, just ramble.
No, you're cool. And the unit that you reach out to, you can ask those kind of questions, like what kind of vibe is this? Do you share meals? I know my cousin Ash and her partner Aaron, they lived in a share house where they would have communal meals together. And that's gorgeous. And my house is a little bit more distant than that, but my mate Lockie and I get along like a house on fire, and we do a bunch together. And it is more of a family thing than I think other friends have. And for me, it is really important to still be close to family and friends.
But I totally understand if, like, I've got friends who have moved away to different countries.
Yeah.
And they've been like, I couldn't care less.
Yeah, 100%. And you can make that home. When I lived overseas on a boat.
Yeah, exactly. For like a year, right?
Yeah, it ended up being 3-4 months, but let's call it a year. Let's round up. COVID cut it short.
But that's why I didn't see you for a year.
Yeah. But, I found those little blood type connections, and you kind of find your home wherever you migrate to, and you attract the people that you'll attract. But yeah, it is really important to ask those questions early with the people that you move out with, like how connected are we going to be? And we again talked about that in a previous episode, didn't we, of of how, like, what do you want out of this, and what kind of boundaries do you want?
Yeah, and I find it discussing with people who you want to move out with, you've really got to be unafraid of who you are. Like, I think when I was coming here, I kind of shied away from like, I want to host dinner parties. I want people to come over, watch movies. Yeah. But like, I should have absolutely been open about that and been like, here's what I want. Here's what you can expect from me. So there's no surprises. And there's hopefully none of this when it comes to like actually living how you want to live.
So would you say you're like hosting dinner parties and stuff, if you'd gone into a house and been like, I want this, and then been like, nah,
you got to be picky. You're locked in for a year.
Would you have been like, I don't want to be in this situation then?
Well, yeah, because like if I wanted to do things as like part of my social existence and part of what I really love about life, and like a part of the point that I'm moving out of my parents' house in the first place, it's like, well, if we're not compatible on that one thing, would you? Like, what kind of rabbit hole of incompatibility is that going to go down? You know, you've really got to be firm. Like, it's your life, and it's a legally binding contract.
Yeah, which is your first potentially. And for some people, their first big life decision that there's real world consequences outside of a family unit. And that is a massive thing too. Even things like if you've got a partner, their housemates might be really weird with that. Like, hey, if they're going to be over, bro, like over a certain amount of week, like maybe they're going to start chipping in for rent, you know? But people get really weird about that because water bills might go up or whatever.
And the thing is, like, that sounds so strange, like, to say to someone, but it's like... It's totally reasonable.
Yeah,
like
that's
they're
also
using
fair.
the stuff in the house.
Yeah. And so you might have to pay extra. And so there's these conversations you wouldn't even know would arise, and you're not expected to. But I think that's why we also started the podcast, was to kind of share what we've learned along this journey so that people don't get stuck into these miserable year-long contracts that we've heard a lot of mates get stuck into. And it's hell. It really is hell.
It's and everyday existence.
And then they move back home and they scuttle there for a while. But ultimately, it's like talking about therapists, right? You've got to try a bunch of different therapists to find the right one. But a lot of people get scared off from it early on because they might have a terrible therapist. But it's the same with Sharehouse living, except you don't get the luxury of spending, you know, a week here, a week there, or say once a month here, a month there. You've got to kind of nail it at least a little bit the first time you move out. And some people, as we've spoken about already, kind of don't have that. They've got time pressures. But I mean, my biggest point to give to you, if you ever want to move out in the recent times, is just make sure that you've done a little bit of research into the people and you've got your values straight on what you want.
Yeah. See, I just sort of like thought in my own head. I didn't think about actually having like the conversation with them, going like, this is why you suck.
Yeah.
Shout out Sile, everybody.
That wasn't even about it. That wasn't even about it at all.
It is now. I've made it so.
I made that. I want to live with Sile. Yeah. That was about everyone else, so I didn't want to live with
it. Yeah. I mean, and that's... And instead of that, you can just, find a better way to phrase it, I hope.
I've never been good at that. I'm sorry.
No, and that's okay. But yeah, it's such an important thing that a lot of people, when they go into Sharehouse discussions, right, it's like, hey, so what kind of house is it? A party house or nah? Oh, no, it's pretty chill, bro. Sick, I'm in. And so that's probably not enough of a conversation.
That ends in flames.
Do we split toilet paper? Or, nah, bro, everyone brings their own. Sick, I'm in. Like, that's... You need a little bit more of that. Like, you just a little bit more
like
of a conversation.
Like an in-depth sort of discussion on the type of people you are. And, like, I think you should come into the conversation looking... Like, knowing what qualities you want first. Because then otherwise someone could be like, parties, and like... That's cool. And then you haven't thought of it first. Go like, I fucking hate that.
Yeah. How consistent are these parties?
Yeah.
Like go for lunch with somebody is the easiest way to do it. If it's like you're meeting them online for the first time with like through the apps, go for lunch. Have a good hour and a bit. And if you can sit through a good hour of conversation with them and you're enjoying it, that's probably a good sign.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got questions. Feel free to have prepped questions.
There doesn't have to be the pressure of best friendship. Like, you just have to be like compatible acquaintance-wise. And then houses can work.
Which is coming to a family thing. You don't have to be that close. Like siblings as well. Just be all right around them.
Yeah, close enough.
And they know you. They know your boundaries, I'd hope. And
they know it enough to push it.
Yeah. Hey, and that's life, and that's the Sharehouse.
Shannon McShortle, thank you for coming on. Would you like to plug any of your things?
I have nothing to plug.
You didn't write any books or anything?
Not that got published.
Hey, but keep an eye on him.
Yeah, because
He's a public threat. That's why. Keep an eye.
Reach out to us, sharehousepod@gmail.com. Send in your gripes that you have in your households or living in general, because we'd love to battle it out for you. Sharehousepod on Instagram, TikTok, everything. Just hit us up. Thank you for listening.
Make sure you tell someone you love them.